Thank you all for joining us this morning. I am beyond excited to be at this point in the process. My name is Marla Franco, and I serve as the Assistant Vice Provost for Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives at the University of Arizona. I'm honored to stand before you today, along with our third cohort of HSI Fellows, who serve shoulder to shoulder with me and so many others to advance our efforts and capacity as a Hispanic serving institution. I want to acknowledge that we are joined actually by HSI Fellows from our first and second cohorts, as well as our fourth cohort, who actually will begin their journey next month. It's been a beautiful thing to see this program grow. Before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge two things. So despite the fact that we are not physically gathered on campus for this special convening today, we honor people and place, and we situate ourselves as guests on the traditional homelands of the Tohono and Pasco Yaqui people. Next, it's also important to acknowledge that there are many involved who help make this program possible. I would certainly like to thank Provost Folks for her continued support of this program, Vice Provost Romero, and Assistant Vice Provost for Faculty Development for their guidance and time spent with our fellows. Several of you who served as facilitators and panelists throughout the program, certainly Monique Beltran, who helps manage all of our logistics, our partners in human resources, and most certainly to the Inclusive Leadership Steering Committee, who helped me fine-tune my dream for this program during the summer of 2018. We will have some time later in this session for questions and discussion. So please feel free, I encourage you to share your thoughts and your questions with us during that time, as well as encourage you to use the chat throughout the entire session this morning to express your thoughts and ideas, and certainly want it to be an engagement with you all. So without further delay, I would like to hand it over to our provost, Liesl Folks, who will provide us with an official university welcome. Provost Folks.
Thank you, Marla, and thank you everybody for being here today. It's lovely to see so many people joining us for this celebratory event. So let me just make a special acknowledgement and welcome to Emmanuel Codillo, who's joining us from the White House Hispanic Prosperity Initiatives team. Thank you for joining us. To Regent Larry Penley and Larry Sandigo from ABOR, thank you. To the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, it's terrific to have such a supportive and enthusiastic group of leaders to partner with. Thank you. And the many other colleges and universities from across the nation who've joined us today to learn a bit more about this signature program. I want to acknowledge the 2020-2021 HSI Fellows who, despite needing to meet virtually really all year, were engaged and committed to this process and led truly important work to strengthen our capacity as a leading HSI institute, or HSI. I want to acknowledge that this program went from being a pilot in just 2018 to receiving permanent funding in 2020 with an investment from my office, from the Office of the Provost, which recognizes how swiftly this has become a signature activity for our institution that really allows us to innovate at an incredibly fast pace in order to better serve our Hispanic students, as well as our staff and faculty. I deeply value the strategic nature of this program, which aims to strengthen and create a cadre of faculty and staff who will become well poised to problem solve, to develop and lead efforts to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the University of Arizona. I want to especially give thanks to Marla Franco, who just introduced us. Marla has been not just passionate in her work to ensure that the University of Arizona could live up to the commitments that we've made to the Hispanic community, but more importantly, to move to the front and lead as a Hispanic serving institution. Marla is incredibly strategic in her thinking, and I think you see that strength embedded in this program. And without her, I'm sure we wouldn't be in nearly the strong position that we're in today. Thank you, everybody. I'll turn the program back over to Marla because I know we've got a packed agenda and I do not want to take up any more time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Provost folks, for your kind words and for your continued support of the program. It really is through the belief and support of so many, including Provost folks at our institution, that enable and make this program possible. So thank you so much. I would now like to begin our very quick round of introductions of the HSI Fellows themselves. And so we're actually going to start with Damian Vaca, and he will kick it off with our very quick introductions, and we will quickly go from left to right so that you know who our HSI Fellows are. Damian?
Thank you, Marla. Damian Vaca, Associate Professor and Director of Undergraduate Studies in the Department of Mexican American Studies. I've been with the university since 2008.
Sandra?
Good morning, Sandra Berna. I am a lecturer at the School of Landscape Architecture and Planning of the College of Architecture, Landscape and Planning. And I am an alumni, graduated from the Arid program in 2019, joining as a faculty right after. Thank you.
Sheena?
Good morning, I'm Sheena Brown, Associate Professor of Practice with the College of Applied Sciences and Technology. I've been at the U of A since around 2003 with a little gap in between, and I'm also an alum of U of A with completing a master's degree in 2014 in public health.
Lizette?
Hello, my name is Lisette Davey. I'm the Director of Honors Online and Experiential Learning as a part of the Honors College. I am a two-time alumni of the University of Arizona, culminating a PhD, and I've been at the university since 2013.
Thank you. Daniel?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Martinez. I'm an associate professor in the School of Sociology. I'm also one of the co-directors of the Binational Migration Institute in the Department of Mexican American Studies. I've been at the university as a faculty member since 2017. Prior to joining the faculty here, I was an assistant professor at George Washington University for 4 years in DC. And I'm actually also an alum of the University of Arizona. I did a master's degree in Mexican American Studies in 2006, a master's in sociology in 2008, and completed my PhD in 2013.
Thank you. Melanie?
Hello, my name is Melanie Martinez. I also go by Mele. I'm a senior lecturer in the writing program with the English department. I've been an educator here at the U of A since 2014. I'm also a UA alum. I got my bachelor's degree in creative writing from the University of Arizona, and I'm a Tucsonense, so this is my hometown.
Annabelle?
Good morning, everyone. Annabelle Nunez. I'm the Associate Director for the Health Sciences Library. I've been at the Health Sciences Library for 17 years, and I am an alumni of the university twice over. My undergrad degree is in secondary education. I received that in 1989, and I earned my master's degree in 2003 through the Knowledge River program of the School of Information, and I'm a Tucsonense as well.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Ortiz, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the College of Medicine, Tucson, and I've basically been at U of A my entire adult life. I completed my PhD in communication from U of A, and then I was an assistant professor at The Ohio State University before coming back to the University of Arizona.
Thank you. Clarina?
Hi, buenos dias. My name is Clarina Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Recruitment at the College of Humanities, and I'm also an alumna of the College of Humanities itself here on campus. I got my bachelor's degree in French and then a master's in higher education.
Great. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Chesky. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Nutritional Sciences, and I have been a faculty member at U of A since 2012.
Great. So this is cohort 3 of the HSI Fellows program. Thank you all for joining us. So I'd like to give you a brief overview of the HSI Fellows program, how it came to be, what it's designed to accomplish, and the notoriety it's gained in just 3 short years. I've worked in higher education for 21 years now, with the last 8 of those being at the University of Arizona. When I came to work at the U of A in 2013, it was a much bigger decision than just taking a new job. It meant uprooting myself and my immediate family, leaving what I knew and everyone I knew to come to a new state to start a new journey. Although it was a time of promise and opportunity, I yearned for connection to people and place. I yearned to feel at home and to feel as though I belonged. This took a little longer than I had hoped, but it did come for me. Fast forward to 2018, and I was at the tail end of participating in the university's Academic Leadership Institute. I had been selected, mentored, trained, challenged, and invested in. I'm forever grateful for that experience. But it ended for me in a way that left me feeling as though I was ready to do more and give more of myself to this campus community and the community at large. These experiences left me feeling like I couldn't possibly be the only one who felt this way. At around the same time, there was an opportunity during the summer of 2018 to pitch an idea to the interim provost at the time. It was a plan for bringing to life the HSI designation in a thoughtful and intentional way, aimed at building institutional capacity as an HSI by investing in our faculty and staff who could then advance HSI efforts from all facets of our university, essentially activating stewards and change agents throughout our campus. So how did we do this? Well, there are 10 fellows, 10 sessions, and 1 cohort. This isn't just any university-sponsored professional development program, though. In this program, you enter as fellows, but you leave as family. The start of the program is a kickoff dinner. And there's probably not a more meaningful way to welcome others and affirm them than to welcome them into your own home. That evening, we gather around the heart of my home, which is the kitchen, just like I would do with my own family for Sunday dinners. On that night, we eat, we laugh, we cry, we share stories, we become inspired, and we share our hopes for this work. That night sets the tone for everything else that follows. The other sessions bring an array of equity-oriented knowledge holders, both internal and external to the U of A, who share their wisdom, experience, and strategy with us. This past year, we once again had the opportunity to have a virtual session with Dr. Gina Garcia from the University of Pittsburgh, who is the leading scholar for HSI-related research. Fellows also benefited from a session with Julie Forster from our university's Office of Leadership and Organizational Development, focused on design thinking principles and project management. We also brought in a dear friend and colleague of mine from California, Dr. Lorena Marquez, who is the founder of Dinner con Doctoras, which has actually quickly become a national movement to create visibility and a mentorship network for women of color pursuing doctoral degrees, including those aspiring to start programs. These are just a few examples of those who were brought in to help guide our learning and engagement in the program. Coupled with our sessions, the fellows formed into 4 smaller teams, and they worked to tackle a gap or challenge aimed at creating blueprints for building stronger and greater capacity as a Hispanic serving institution. These projects serve as building blocks for cultivating sustained cross-campus leadership of HSI-related work. In fact, I'd love to highlight a few HSI Fellows from prior cohorts to show you that there's been this powerful ripple effect. What I only dreamed of happening as a result of this program has been taking shape and is taking root here at the University of Arizona. I had to stop myself from adding any more to this slide, as there are now so many examples of diffused and compelling leadership in connection to this work. Top left, you will see Eileen Wong, an assistant clinical professor and research audiologist in the College of Science, who was actually part of our first cohort. She leveraged her experiences in the HSI Fellows program to effectuate change and greater understanding within the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences. She observed an issue. In the US, only 8% of speech, language, and hearing professionals are ethnically or racially diverse. And in the state of Arizona in particular, the gap between Spanish-speaking patients and Spanish-speaking audiologists and pathologists is significant. So what does this mean for an academic program that is preparing the state and nation's next speech, language, and hearing scientists and clinical professionals? Supported by a small grant by our STEM and HSI working group, she and others in her department raised awareness, shifted perspectives, and built institutional capacity to guide STEM faculty to achieve a more holistic, equitable, and inclusive approach for high-stakes student review process when looking at graduate admissions. In examining departmental admissions review policies and processes and assessing the extent to which it supported equity and inclusion, in 2020, that department discontinued GRE requirements for Master's and Doctor of Audiology program admission requirements for their 2021 applicants, with a commitment to reviewing the requirement for future application cycles. She and others have a manuscript that should be published very soon in the American Journal of Speech Language Pathology to share with others their process for engaging faculty in shifting towards more holistic graduate admissions review processes, particularly at Hispanic serving institutions. Adrian Arroyo Perez is an Associate Director of Faculty Affairs at the University of Arizona and was part of our second cohort of HSI Fellows. As an HSI Fellow, he worked with others to research HSI Consortium models in California, Texas, Nevada, and Florida to help determine their purpose, structure, history, and priorities, and determine how such models might inform one that we could develop here in the state of Arizona. Thanks to those efforts, in January 2021, the University of Arizona launched the HSI Consortium, which aims to build a community of practice across the 22 HSIs in Arizona. Above and beyond the fellowship, he also went to lead a multi-institutional research collaboration to address a gap and an opportunity that he found in the HSI research. He worked with others to conduct an environmental scan of LGBTQ+ servingness at Research One HSIs, and they are currently working on a manuscript. He also launched a new course this semester at the University of Arizona focused on queer and trans, Black, Indigenous, Latinx people of color in STEM leadership and success strategies. And last, but certainly not least, Ashley Linares Gafford was also part of our second HSI Fellows cohort and is an associate professor of practice in nutritional sciences. She partnered with colleagues from our university's campus in Yuma to respond to gaps and opportunities that actually resulted in an awarded grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to increase the number of students completing nutritional science degrees and earning dietetics credentials at UA-Yuma by introducing a culturally responsive development of farm to table as medicine experiential learning activities that's going to help address regional food safety, food security, food production, incorporation of local cuisine, and cultural cooking traditions. I really could go on and on with so many more examples of how HSI Fellows across all cohorts are leading important institutional work that advances our HSI designation in ways that far exceed simply meeting an enrollment metric. This program, by design, has strengthened leadership across our campus, resulting in advancements of access, equity, and inclusion with impact for the University of Arizona and far beyond. So now I'd like to shift gears and talk to you really as an opportunity to highlight our current cohort and their leadership around engaging in project-based capacity building here at the University of Arizona. So now we're going to switch gears and learn more from our current fellows about their projects. So first up is our project focusing on developing networks to increase binational collaboration opportunities for Latinx students. I'm joined by Lizette and Daniel, who will provide more about their HSI Fellows project. Lizette, Daniel, go ahead.
Thanks, Dr. Franco. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all about our the key findings from our HSI Fellowships project. So our project focused on identifying key opportunities and obstacles to increasing binational collaboration on the US-Mexico border between members of the UA community and partners in Mexican institutions. More specifically, the aim of our project was to work towards expanding research and service learning opportunities for students, particularly those that identify as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, or Latinx. Now, why is this important, and how does this contribute to our HSI mission? Well, we know that as of fall 2020, approximately 26% of UA students self-identified as Hispanic or Latinx, with 28% of undergrads and 19% of grad students identifying as such. Moreover, among Latinx students, roughly 79% were enrolled as in-state students, most of which are from Southern Arizona. So we believe that expanding research and service learning opportunities that focused on the US-Mexico border will ultimately help advance our HSI mission by providing students with a university experience that resonates with their own personal lives and is reflective of their family and community histories. And we believe that this approach could help further develop a sense of belonging on campus, thereby increasing retention and graduation rates among those who participate in these types of activities.
So now that we knew that this work was important, we had to come up with research questions so we could find out more on how to make this possible. Our research questions included, how can the U Arizona community increase binational collaboration? And when we speak of binational collaboration, we're specifically meaning initiatives on the US-Mexico border to provide meaningful research and service experiences for Latina, O, and X students. And what are the existing strengths and areas of opportunity to help serve this mission? We wanted to take an asset-based approach and perspective. So it's important to share with you that we identified dozens of units and nearly 100 individual employees at this institution that are committed to binational collaboration. This led us to seek out the answer to another question, which is, what were the obstacles in facilitating binational collaboration?
So before sharing some of our key findings, I'd just like to briefly go over, 30 seconds max of our methodology. So I'd like to speak to you about what we did. So between January and May of 2021, we completed 32 surveys and in-depth interviews with key stakeholders on campus. Now, the surveys were quite short. They lasted about 5 minutes, but served as a jumping off point for the longer in-depth interviews, which lasted about anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So we began the project by interviewing colleagues who we knew personally that engaged or were at least interested in binational collaborative work focused on the US-Mexico border. We then expanded our sample by relying on referrals made by those initial interviewees. We also used those referrals to construct 2 social network maps to visualize direct ties, indirect ties, and possible gaps among U-Arizona employees that engage in binational collaborative work, specifically focused on the US-Mexico border. And so I'll share the results of those mapping efforts in a moment, but before doing so, I'd like to give the floor back to Lisette, who will highlight some of our key findings and visionary steps.
So the key findings from all of this data, and there was a lot, is that there were wonderful ideas, some things that we could adapt today, like adding language abilities such as Spanish speaking to our signature line to be more inclusive of students who might want to speak Spanish with us, to larger systematic movements, such as dedicating an office to binational collaboration. Through our 32 interviews, we pared down the key themes based off of the findings. We hope to share a report with all of you so you could read in depth the many other findings, but today we'll just highlight a few. Some of the findings we'd like to highlight include this really important piece, which is that this work is being done. But what would it look like if we intentionally had it written into position descriptions with the inclusion of intentional binational collaboration? We found that many of our interviewees were passionate about supporting this work and being involved in the borderlands, but it was usually outside the scope of their work. A second key finding was considering defining U-Arizona as a borderlands institution. That would include leveraging our geographic identity as the borderlands. U-Arizona is in a unique position to foster and develop such an identity. Cultivating our borderlands identity would include recognizing the cultural and historical significance of our proximity to the Sonora and creating partnerships with local Mexican origin, immigrant, and indigenous communities. Finally, binational collaboration networks do exist informally at U-Arizona. However, there's not a centralized pathway to collaborate. A network is needed to engage in internal and external collaborations. This wouldn't just benefit the University of Arizona, it would also benefit our community partners who have difficulty identifying and navigating how to connect within the institution. So what could some of our next steps be? What could be some of those visionary steps that we move forward? Maybe even for a future HSI cohort to examine. For institutional next steps for growth, we would like to see a building of a step-by-step guide that would structure and facilitate this work. People just need help in understanding how to make binational collaboration happen. This was a very common key finding across the board, which was establishing a sustainable funding not only inside of our institution, but outside of our institution. So with that, we hope we can share our report more. There's more key findings, but hopefully these are some of the takeaways that you can remember moving forward. And I'm going to turn it to Dan, who's going to share our very exciting social network map.
So before that, I think, Lisette, you may have cut out there the last point, but one thing that we saw, as Lisette mentioned, there are a lot of people doing this type of work on campus, yet we don't necessarily have a centralized effort to carry this out. Another thing that came up quite a bit in our interviews was this idea of the absence or lack of a strong borderlands identity as an institution, and that's an area of opportunity I think that we can continue to contribute to and grow. In fact, some interviewees suggested that our competing peer up in Phoenix has a stronger borderlands identity than we do here at the University of Arizona, and that's something that came up several times. So that is a possible area of potential growth and opportunity. So Dr. Franco, if we could go to the next slide, in just a few minutes that I have remaining, I just want to share our social mapping network efforts. Okay, so an additional goal of this project was to create 2 network maps to illustrate existing ties between University of Arizona employees who currently engage or at least are interested in binational collaborative work on the US-Mexico border. And so we constructed 2 maps, one based on unit ID and the other one based at the individual level. And the map that you see here is based at the individual level. And so we constructed these network maps, drawing on our 32 interviews in response to the following 2 survey questions. So the first was, excluding yourself, please identify 5 people on campus you believe play a critical role in structuring and facilitating binational collaborative work. And then another open-ended question, is there anyone else you think we should reach out to about these questions? And so we use this information to construct what you see here. So we collected information on each individual mentioned, encoded for the respective unit ID on campus. This is the university's official college ID designation. And I just want to make clear that college ID not only includes university colleges, but also includes entities in central administration, as well as in research centers and institutes. So this figure, for instance, provides the relational information on employees at the University of Arizona based on official college ID of each respective person mentioned in the interviewee's responses to those aforementioned questions. In all, 91 unique individuals are represented in the network as playing a key role in binational collaborative work focused on the US-Mexico border. And here you'll notice that each node is weighted according to their eigenvector centrality, which is a score measuring the influence of a node in a particular network, with larger nodes playing a more central unit or more central role in the network. Okay, so the nodes are also color-coded and represented by unique symbols associated with each employee's unit according to the respective college ID. So as noted in this figure, there's a relatively large community of University of Arizona employees engaged in binational collaborative work. Here we see employees in units such as the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Arizona Global, and the Confluence Center appear to be very central to this network. This is undoubtedly a function of the nature and scope of the officially assigned duties of these employees within these respective units. However, it's also possible that our results might be biased towards specific units like SBS, given our pre-existing context. Nevertheless, while our studies results clearly illustrate that several employees possess notable direct or indirect ties to each other, others do not possess extensive ties at all, right? Especially among employees whose assigned duties do not explicitly include binational collaborative initiatives and who may actually be siloed in the respective units when it comes to this type of work. So in short, just to wrap up, I think this social network map could be used as a tool to forge new professional connections between University of Arizona community members who have demonstrated a commitment to fostering binational collaborative work on the US-Mexico border. Thank you.
And to add one factor, how Marla has articulated, this HSI project is about family as well. It's about building a cohort. And so for anyone who's ever felt isolated in this work, I hope that you can feel inspired by this map and know that this work is happening. We just need to be more connected.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about this project. Please get your thoughts and questions ready, engage in chat, and there'll certainly be time to post questions and thoughts in a little bit. Thank you both Lizette and Daniel for sharing a little bit about this project. So next up, let's see. Next up is a project and a team that really focus on preparing and retaining students in STEAM. And so Sandra, Clarina, and Jennifer, we'd love to hear a little bit more from you all regarding your projects.
Thank you, Dr. Franco. So College of Agriculture and Life Science, where I am from, might be like your college. The students in CALS who identify as underrepresented minorities, first-generation college students, and low income are in the majority of students. These students who are STEM majors actually are significantly less likely and graduate at 50% the rate as their peers. This represents our STEM retention gap. This is the challenge that we initially sought out to address with our project. So the Arizona in Science, Engineering and Math Scholars Program, ASEMS, that many of you have already heard about because it was adopted in 2008 or established in College of Science, was piloted in CALS in 2018 through the foresight of Dr. Folk's Provost Investment Fund. In the 2 years in that grant was able to increase the retention of Hispanic students to 95%. That is unheard of. Our project came about by saying we need to continue to serve the students in CALS. So our first goal was to submit a grant to the U.S. Department of Agriculture to continue CALS ASEMS. So that's a first small goal. Our second true goal was to say, okay, if we can continue this program in CALS and it came from College of Science, can we also expand it into, say humanities? And finally, can we take our submission of our grant and everything that we've learned, how do we establish recommendations for individuals who are seeking to submit extramural grants for HSI initiatives? So with that, I'd like to have Sandra talk about more of our outcomes and recommendations.
Of course, thank you. So the process started by conducting a web and document search of how our project will be meaningful for the U of A and the HSI designation. We needed a specific mention within the university's strategic plan. We found it under the pillar number 3 for Arizona Advantage, under the Driving Social, Cultural, and Economic Impact Initiative, that calls for well-informed strategies that support the conditions necessary for greater access and rates of degree attainment for Hispanic learners. Second step, look across departmental collaboration. Through the Office of Analytics and Institutional Research, we obtain historical records and enrollment retention and engagement for CALS and STEM majors. After analyzing the data, the results suggested a downfall of retention of underrepresented groups, specifically Hispanics in CALS and STEM, as Jen already mentioned. That was before 2018. As we can see in the slide, since CALS ASEMS started in 2018, the retention of freshmen and transfer students increased and currently persist. The outcomes. First, of course, we celebrated in May that the grant was awarded. Second outcome, a well-streamlined elevator speech about HSI and the meaning of service, used to introduce ourselves and the project and the grant idea to multiple departments and offices across and even out of campus sometimes. The third one, we know now where to find evident and not as evident routes to university resources. So we were creative, we knocked so many doors. Such prestigious grant application demanded special attention to identifying the relevant finance individuals and the right concepts, amounts to complete the budget that fits the institutional requirements, so the in-house requirements, and also the grantee conditions. Difficult pathway, Jen, bravo. At the end, after receiving the good news that the grant was awarded, we noticed that the work is worth reusing and passed on. So our recommendation is to not only use what we have collected in terms of materials, data, descriptions, relationships, but to use it in future HSI-led grant application and collect more if possible. So we are planning and we recommend to have a house like a Hispanic Serving Institution Fellowship for data and information that may help in future efforts. Thank you, Karina.
Yeah, and so I just want to bring back that rate, the retention rate of 95%, like Jen said, it's unheard of. This is an incredibly successful program that exists on our campus, and just how it was replicated in CALS, like we said, we would have a hope that it would be replicated in other campuses. And it's really easy for us to point out a figure like 95% retention and brag about it and feature it on our websites. But what really matters is how a program like this impacts the individual students who persist and graduate, especially for those students who are first-generation college students. That degree attainment will likely contribute to the upward mobility of their own lives and their children and their children's children from generation to generation. This work is incredibly important, and the impact goes beyond what we can see in one semester or one retention rate. However, despite the success, the existence, especially in CALS, has been largely dependent on that grant funding. And so we know that can be a precarious situation. But by seeking a grant from a national institution like the US Department of Agriculture, we had the opportunity to collaborate with various departments across campus to submit a competitive application. In fact, the request for application itself wanted to see that collaboration, not only between STEM, but also STEM with social sciences and STEM with humanities. And so I think that's how we can continue to build that institutional capacity, is by establishing those relationships and those partnerships, by promoting this program. Everyone who we talk to, especially if they had not heard of the ASIMS program and its success, we're blown away just by the impact that it has had in CALS. And so beyond that, using opportunities like this to get the attention of college and university leadership, which will ultimately hopefully help institutionalize this program, right? So that way it's not dependent on grant funding, that it will be sustainable and to continue to impact students for years to come.
Thank you so much to this team for a tremendous project and sharing out. I have to say that this is probably I think the first time within the HSI Fellows program that a team was able to accomplish both a submission as well as being able to be awarded a federal grant opportunity. And so a sheer testament to the tremendous lift that this team did, but I think more so you hear the opportunity to work smarter, right? And so how do they leverage what they found, the data that they gathered, the narrative that they helped build, and really help pass that on to others who are engaged in HSI grant development. So next up, we have tools for practicing culturally relevant pedagogies. We have Damian, Melanie, and Annabelle. Take it away.
Thank you. Our group addressed a long overdue need to correct the habit of university employees, often administrators and tenured faculty of full rank, employees who anglicize and otherwise mispronounce the names of students, faculty, and staff who use non-English identifiers. Acts of naming and renaming in the Americas, in the United States, in educational institutions, these are entangled with layers of colonization and schooling for purposes of assimilation and cultural erasure. Research findings confirm that name mispronunciation can lead to racially hostile learning and working environments. So as a corrective, we initiated collaboration with the Office of Instruction and Assessment, with leaders, developers, and technicians across campus to create name pronunciation instructor support, with an understanding that there are really no names that are hard to pronounce. Rather, some names are simply either unpracticed or under-practiced. A test site then was created to integrate roster tools with a name pronunciation app, allowing users to create customized name badges, including text and audio recordings of their names in their own voices. Not only could users create name badges, but instructors could view and access unlimited audio recordings to practice pronouncing student names. After the name pronunciation roster tool went live for campus-wide use, we consulted with other developers and administrators to discuss expanded future capacities for the tool to incorporate widespread use in various platforms, including D2L and also CAT card registration. A brief clarification here. So this project, it does not seek phonetic precision, and correct pronunciation is not to become a litmus test. So we're not really concerned with, well, who can pronounce the rolled R or double R in Spanish and who cannot. This isn't really, that's not quite our aim. Instead, our project strives to increase HSI servingness through accountability in community and the ability to listen to, learn from, and learn with diverse students and diverse colleagues. Critically listening when others tell us their names, their pronouns, and who they are can help us as university employees to co-create equitable, accessible, and affirming working and learning environments. So there are a couple of other components to our project, and right now I'll turn the floor over to Annabelle Nunez.
Good morning, and thank you, Damian. We worked with Dr. Judy Kiyama to prepare the Culturally Responsive Curriculum Development Institute. And to build some of the information literacy skills, we determined it was important to guide faculty, instructors, and researchers to key information resources and scholarly works related to culturally relevant pedagogy. In doing so, we contributed to the library guide, also known as the LibGuide, that colleagues Masha, Jameen, and Yvonne Mary developed for inclusive and culturally responsive teaching. To facilitate easy access to the university's licensed resources, I guided the CRCDI participants to bookmark Google Scholar, which we know is used very much amongst faculty and anyone who's using Google, to present their preferred internet browser bar and enable the appropriate settings for immediate access to journal articles and books and other items. I demonstrated searching techniques for retrieval of relevant scholarship and resources. Also included in the Institute tab of the LibGuide, in addition to the step-by-step guide for creating a bookmark, are example of CRP search engine search strategies for key databases. The links in the LibGuide will run the search in said databases, and search strategy examples feature a few search areas. And instructors can modify the search and apply search terms or keywords that are within their own subject domains. The resources available in the LibGuide, which include the presentations and resources for the name pronunciation practices and the testimonial guidance that you'll hear about later, are of value for both faculty and students interested in CRP. For instructors, it will lead them to research on the effectiveness of CRP teachings, and for students, it may inform their curiosity of what can be possible and expected for inclusivity with this form of instruction. The Institute serves as a great venue to build capacity in the participants that come through annually, and it is to be determined if it will be a partnership with Dr. Kiyama. To circle back to the work about the name pronunciation work, we met with Dr. Franco and Ivy Banks to continue finding the campus key stakeholders to develop and implement a name pronunciation tool that will work throughout the whole organization at a top level on down.
Thank you so much to this team for sharing a bit about your project. One observation that we can certainly talk more about later was this project really lent well to pretty immediate implementation through the Culturally Responsive Curriculum Development Institute that was hosted in June 2021. So thank you so much for sharing. So next up, we have our next and last project on mental health resources at the University of Arizona, where both Sheena Brown and Michelle Ortiz joined together to really take a deep dive into assessing and taking a really holistic view at existing mental health resources available to our campus community. So go ahead, Sheena and Michelle, take it away.
Great, thank you, Dr. Franco. So Sheena and I had the shared interest of developing the pipeline basically among our undergraduate students. And part of that involved making sure that they have the available mental health and wellness resources available to them. So part of our goals were to survey and review mental health and wellness resources at the University of Arizona for both face-to-face as well as online students, and also then discuss some areas of exploration and inclusively meeting the health and wellness needs of all of our students in person and online. In line with what other groups have mentioned, right, as part of their projects, we knew that we wanted to serve the retention rates and the graduation rates of our students. And so the positive development of emerging adults in college is vital to reaching their academic success. And the challenges faced by Latinx and Hispanic students in post-secondary education may influence lower retention and graduation rates, albeit the University of Arizona has some very good retention and graduation rates for Latino students, Latinx students. Some of these challenges include acculturation issues, experiences with racism or microaggressions, and financial circumstances. These factors act as stressors that may impact student well-being. In fact, the stress during college can have even a greater impact on students of color, affecting their mental health and subjective well-being. So given these challenges, it's important that we as an institution offer culturally responsive mental health and wellness services to our student population. So as part of this project, we met with several resources and people around campus to learn about these services, including the Chief Wellness Officer, the U of A Mental Health Working Group, and also learned about online student services. And I'm going to hand it over to Sheena so she can talk about our findings.
Okay, so what we found is that the initiatives provided by CAPS and other U of A programs are comprehensive and ever evolving. This includes one-on-one counselling, support groups, workshops, peer support, to name just a few examples. And honestly, we were quite impressed about the depth and breadth of the resources that are available for Tucson campus students. However, for those attending U of A as an online or distant student, many of these services and initiatives are unavailable. Online students do have access to counsellors via a third-party provider. However, preventive care and support for students with subclinical issues is largely absent. So while the importance of mental health initiatives is certainly recognised by U of A, these initiatives are primarily accessible to those students located in Tucson and not to those completing their degree programs in an online modality. And considering the recent reports that indicate an increasing prevalence of stress, anxiety, depressive thoughts due to COVID-19, it's even more relevant to effectively initiate and fund online services and to develop a culturally responsive process to engage students with these services. So from our observations and discussions, we came up with 4 main areas for further exploration. And the first was to provide training for those in direct and frequent contact with students. And here I'm referring to faculty, staff, advisors, making sure that all are aware of the resources available to the different enrollment modalities of students, and to know how to recognize the signs and symptoms of distress and have the appropriate referral resources at their fingertips. One solution would be to produce a 1-page information sheet for both Tucson campus students and online students that's easily accessible for both students and those working with the students. And I think this information should also be included in all D2L class sites, because providing multiple access points for this information is very important. The second point, work with diverse groups of students to understand their mental health needs and preferred solutions in online environments. So finding appropriate solutions is challenging for a number of reasons, but by asking our students what kinds of resources they would like to have, what kinds of resources they would use, and how they would prefer to access them would be one positive step towards solution finding. Third point, engage in an institution-wide campaign to reduce the stigma around mental health and wellness. And I think one of the problems is that mental health tends to be equated with mental illness, and for some it can be an uncomfortable topic for open discussion. The campaign needs to be culturally relevant, therefore the messaging would need to be tailored to different demographics, and it also needs to focus on employees as well as students. And I think by addressing stigma across the board, the campaigns would also help to normalize discussions on mental health and wellness. The final point, exploring funding models to support the development of preventive and culturally responsive mental health care for online students. I can say with Dr. Franco's facilitation, initial discussions are being had around this area, which is great. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. This is also another project that already begun advancing. This group, thanks to their very thoughtful engagement around scouring our resources on campus, has already led to some really important conversations with our counseling and psychological services leadership and staff. And so they are thrilled to see our engagement in this work and are looking forward to partnering with us on some innovative solutions. So thank you to this team for your important work. So those are our 4 projects. And it really exemplifies strength and leadership among our HSI Fellows through this project development component of the program, which is so key and critical to getting the HSI Fellows really kind of already on their feet and empowered and emboldened to provide HSI-related leadership on our campus. So next up, and before we open it up to Q&A and discussion, I just want to let you know that that's coming. But we want to really kind of take some time to listen in to a few testimonials, really to understand the power of personal journeys in this program, which is really also a very key characteristic that shapes the engagement and learning experiences of all involved. So I'm actually going to stop sharing. And I am going to invite Melanie Martinez to share a little bit.
Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to be able to share a testimonial with you all. It's actually one of the foci of my curriculum development, and it was certainly part of my fellowship research. To start, I think it's important for me to talk about the University of Arizona as a place and the importance of placemaking here. I have memories of coming to campus pretty regularly when I was a very little girl. For several generations, my family owned a small tamal and tortilla factory in downtown Tucson. It was called El Rapido. And after work, we would close up shop. And on many days, my brother and my dad and I would actually come to the U of A campus together. At that time, no one in my family had ever graduated from the University of Arizona, but in one way or another, we were connected to it. After a long day of work, my dad would actually jog around the UA Mall while my brother and I waited around for him. We sometimes hung out in the steps of Old Main. Sometimes we did our homework in Louis' lower level, if you all remember that place. And sometimes we'd just sit in the grass and watch the clouds. Back then, I did not really think at all about what was going on inside the buildings at the U of A. I just knew that it was a place that seemed pretty important. After high school, I received a Hispanic student scholarship to attend the University of Arizona. And coming onto campus that time, things were a little bit different for me. I was grateful for that scholarship, for the incredible gift of being able to come to the university, but I also worried quite a lot that if I didn't do the right thing, say the right thing, maybe even write the right thing, that gift could actually be taken away from me. I didn't feel particularly comfortable or safe anymore on campus, and instead I saw it as a temporary place that I had to move through, and a place that I would someday leave and probably never look back. When I graduated, we had a big family party. My dad cooked a huge meal. All of my family members came, but it's important to note that none of us ever attended my commencement. And I think it's because we celebrated in a very different way. Almost 15 years later, I found myself back at the U of A as an instructor for the writing program. I was living downtown at the time, and I took the streetcar each day to work. My commute was less than 2 miles, but when I got to Main Gate, I started to feel as though I was crossing a border into another city, and I struggled with that feeling. To me, the campus didn't really look like Tucson, not the one I knew. It didn't sound like Tucson, didn't taste or even smell like Tucson. Even though this was my hometown, it was my alma mater, it strangely felt foreign to me. Of course, I could walk into all the buildings, I could join faculty meetings, I could even buy my lunch from the student union. I did not have a sense of belonging on this campus. I often felt alone, and much of what I experienced felt unfamiliar to me. That was all until I met Monica de Soto Vega, the English department manager and a former HSI fellow in the first cohort. She talked to me about developing culturally relevant curriculum for the writing program. And it was really one of the first times that I felt familiar, some familiarity on this campus. And she eventually encouraged me to apply for this fellowship. I was so grateful to see that the HSI Fellows cohort was a group that actually looked and sounded recognizable to me, and that the issues that were being discussed very much resonated with me. More than anything else I'd participated in here at the university, the work of the fellowship seemed closer to the Tucson that I've always known. As I worked on testimonial curriculum and other culturally relevant pedagogies from my writing students, I've had to think a lot about what it means to belong. I understand it's a very subjective and hard to measure idea. It's hard to measure for students, staff, faculty, and I'm guessing for administrators and senior leaders alike. But I also know that communities and schools and workplaces need to address the sense of disbelonging or not belonging that is experienced by the people who they say are actually included in these spaces. Of course, this can't be a shallow address. It can't be simply an orientation or a few mentorship programs. UA needs to develop a relationship with the city that it occupies. It needs to honor its land grant, of course, and it needs to be in community rather than isolated or insulated from it. I understand more now than ever that HSI designation needs to mean something to all of us, regardless of our ethnicities. And HSI needs to be able to appreciate and respond to the complex cultural and regional backgrounds of its people. It needs to be more sensitive, and it needs to reflect cultural sensibility, something that my cohort talked about a lot. To me, the HSI Fellows program has been a model of that practice, and I'm so very grateful to have been part of this year's cohort. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Melanie, for sharing certainly your journey, going back far into some of your fond memories in childhood in terms of spending time on this campus and taking us fast forward to your engagement in the program and what it's meant to you. Thank you so much for sharing us and allowing us some of that more intimate insight into your experience. Next up, I'd like to invite Sandra Berna.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And I am sure that I can speak on behalf of my fellows and thank the HSI Fellowship leadership for this opportunity, and obviously the supporters and collaborators for making Marla's dreams possible. I truly feel myself as part of those dreams that she shared with us, and we hope we are feeling a lot, Marla, for you and for what you represent for this campus. Being a fellow strengthens our skills, and I will make emphasis on skills because in my case, were those that already came with me. When I joined the cohort, I thought I will be trained to think as a different person and be convinced of a different version of things. And instead, I was accepted for who I am and with my skills and capacities. So I was exposed, as all of us, to conversations, to workshops, readings, guest speakers that although they spoke to all of us in general, I felt like they were speaking to me into my ears. It was truly amazing how the complexity of the situation of minoritarian groups can be explained in a way that can be recognized, that we can recognize ourselves within the solutions and not only in the group who is impacted by this systematic problem that we're addressing. That was very, very important. We became aware of different point of view, and we always ended our conversations with larger perspective and better understanding of the phenomena around minorities, including international students and faculty like myself, that although we come from Hispanic countries, it takes time for us to understand what is to be an Hispanic in the US and in the U of A. It's a completely different story. I truly felt that my initiation as a fellow was very inspirational. Why? Because I found myself at a time around department heads, office heads, project leaders, tenure track faculty, all of you guys, high profiles. And at that moment, so after the shock, I understood why me? Why, if I am an early career faculty, why, if in any other scenario, I won't be as appealing as you all? So I was told by you, by the team, by the leadership, and by my friends, you are a developer. You are a person who enjoys and knows how to put together solutions. You know how to examine work to detail. You implement collective ideas. Yes, this recognition was beyond amazing. It was not a popularity contest. It was not a search for the perfect face to represent a struggle. More personally, being a fellow, an HSI fellow, allowed me to introduce myself or reintroduce myself to old friends, past colleagues, former mentors and instructors, new and past bosses. They know me now for who I became. I had a chance to make up for my inexperience at early stages in my studies and then in my career. We are now working in and out the U of A, innovating education, bringing collaborators together, developing projects, and yes, winning federal grants. I don't want to miss anyone. Obviously, if I do, it's not intentional, but I really need to mention people within these cohorts who I was fortunate to know better and reconnect. Nadia, Adrienne, Masha, Adriana, Jen, Karina, Lisette, Danielle, of course, Marla and Judy. Thanks for new opportunities to grow and serve. Dear fellows, the sky is the limit, but HSI Fellows, we are not looking at this sky in planet Earth. As you learn from our projects, we are aiming galaxies away. Verdad, gatos, y muchas gracias.
Oh, I love that, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing. You have been quite the developer, and you certainly are more than enough. Thank you for introducing and reintroducing yourself to this group. Thank you for learning and leading and engaging with us this past year and all your contributions to making the fellowship what it was. Last, I'd like to invite Daniel to share a little bit about his experience in the program. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Franco. I appreciate it. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a product of the UA, University of Arizona. I completed a master's in Mexican American Studies, as well as a master's in sociology, and went on to do a PhD in sociology. Though my experience in my PhD program wasn't easy, especially considering there are very few people in my unit from a similar background, my dream was to come back to the university to work closely with Latino, Latina, Latinx students. And a lot of this came from my professionalization in Mexican American Studies, in that master's program. The importance of working with community, giving back to community, and really centering research on community needs. And I don't think I could have come back to the university at a better time. Prior to returning to the University of Arizona, I actually had the opportunity to serve as the inaugural interim director, as well as the associate director of the newly founded Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute at George Washington University. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Cisneros Institute, it was actually made possible by a charitable donation made by GW alumni and former Congressman Gil Cisneros and his partner Jackie. And this was made possible because they had won the California State Lottery. They won $200 million and they gave something like $10 million to GW to first start a scholarship program, which later evolved into the Cisneros Institute. So when probed as to why he established the Institute at one of the most expensive private universities in the country, rather than at a public HSI in, for instance, California or Texas, Gil responded that he wasn't convinced that most HSIs were making good on the servingness aspect of their HSI status and were largely just HSIs in name and based on enrollment numbers, right? When I returned to the University of Arizona as a faculty member, I was extremely excited to not only learn that we had become an HSI while I was away, but to learn that Dr. Franco had been appointed to lead this effort to advance our HSI mission. And after participating in this fellowships program, it's clear that Gil's broad generalization about HSIs across the country does not accurately reflect what is taking place on our campus. I think Dr. Franco's leadership, this fellowship program, and the dozens of projects that have resulted from this program tell us a lot. They tell us that something special is happening on this campus. They're clear examples of what it means to be an HSI, to make good on the servingness aspect of our HSI designation and to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So in addition to helping me personally better understand what it means to be an HSI and to really leverage that servingness aspect of our HSI designation, this fellowship program, this provided me an opportunity to connect with dozens of like-minded folks on campus who are doing this type of work, who have a strong commitment to making good on our HSI status. And for that, I'm grateful. So thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in this fantastic program.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing your experiences. I think there's a lot to be said for stepping away from this campus at a period of time in your life and having the opportunity to return and what that experience was like for you. So thank you so much for sharing. You know, I was chuckling a bit while Daniel was speaking because by all means, if anyone is interested in naming rights of the HSI Fellows program, please come talk to me. What a great opportunity that was at your former institution. I'd certainly like to open it up now. Now is really the time for this community to engage in conversations and questions and to share thoughts and exchange ideas. Things that you heard that perhaps moved you, moved your mind, moved your heart a little bit, but certainly would love to hear from anyone who'd like to share a bit or ask a question. So feel free to mute yourself or raise your hand and we can get that part of the session going.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much. First of all, these projects were amazing and exciting to see, you know, how you guys are moving the needle in such an important way. And some of you I've known for a long time. It was just so exciting to also see you, you know, grow and create new, stronger teams to support the effort. I just want to kind of commend you all for the directions you all took, because I think the implications of all the work you're doing has implications for a lot of marginalized students, not just the Latinx community or the Latinx and the international community. In this case, we were talking a lot about the binational area, but you know, I've been meeting with so many students this year from other countries who are feeling the same level of isolation, and for y'all to bring forward solutions, I think that's what's gratifying. It's bringing to light what's happening, but bringing to light solutions. And I just want to commend you for that. So thank you so much. This was emotional for me. There's definitely a trigger with the name situation. So I'm still kind of recovering from that. But thanks to the testimonials and the vulnerability you all also showed in sharing those. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. As you come up, it would be great to just share a quick introduction, name and affiliation.
Sorry, yes, my name is Sara Chavarria. I'm the Assistant Dean for Research Development at the College of Education. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Judy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy Marquez-Quillama, Associate Vice Provost for Faculty Development. And I want to echo everything that Sara said and what's been in the chat. I mean, it is so beautiful and powerful and moving to hear all of the presentations and testimonials, and such a gift for me to be able to sit in on many of the sessions during the year and learn from all of you. And truly want to just to express my appreciation, because without this group, we could not have launched the Curriculum Development Institute in the ways that we did. And you all brought immediate hands-on activities and practices and literature and solutions that we incorporated into classrooms for this fall, for this summer. And so your work is just so powerful. And the message I want to send to the new fellows, I'm looking so forward to partnering with you. I hope that we can extend on some of these projects and brainstorm together how we might continue to build on some of the faculty development efforts that we have kind of rolling around as new ideas. So I look forward to partnering with all of you, and I'm so grateful for all of your work.
Thank you, Judy. Martha?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marta Cesteaga. I am a program manager in the Academic Administration Office, but I'm going to put my student hat on today, and I'm also a PhD student at the higher education program. And this was very inspiring to see the work that HSI Fellows are doing and Dr. Franco are doing. I mean, I knew about it because I've been involved with Dr. Franco and Dr. Marcus Kiyama in a lot, but to see the specific work that you guys are doing and the important work that you're doing is very inspiring and very compelling. And I'm just excited now as a student to use the resources that you share also, which is amazing because as a student, sometimes you don't know the many resources that are out there. And this was very, very helpful. And now I'm very looking forward to working maybe even with some of you on gathering data or just furthering the ideas of my research and possibly in the future being a fellow as well. When there's more time, of course, not as a student, but this is just very inspiring. And I wanted to commend you and just let you know that as a student, this was very important to me.
Thank you, Martha. We really appreciate it. Kathy?
Hi, so I have to make sure I learn how to put my hand down after this, but so I'm Kathleen Melda and I'm an Associate Dean in the College of Engineering. And I just wanted to mention how really important it is, and I know it's hard, that people are sharing their stories, even when, thank you, even when Marla started it. So, you know, being a woman in engineering, you know, some of these things are lived experiences. But I didn't live an intersectional identity. Maybe it's hidden, but I want to tell you that, you know, I can read about intersectionality in literature and understand the tools, but it has been eye-opening listening to testimonials. You know, I've heard this through you. And then I've heard this recently through my involvement in this Elate's leadership program of how it affects individual people. And I just want to let you know how powerful your stories are in moving the needle. So, and I know it's difficult. And you're also helping me figure out that I've got these buried stories that I haven't identified with, and I'm getting more comfortable from your example in bringing those stories out and talking about them with students. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing. Certainly, if there's any last, you know, kind of sets of questions or thoughts that you'd like to share. Francisco.
Yeah, Marla and team, thank you for a fantastic program and an awesome selection of scholars, fellows, and topics. It's just been exciting and inspiring to be present and feeling the vibe of what's going on. You know, every one of the testimonials was also something that I believe should not stand, just end at our conversation here. I would encourage you all to let's figure out a way of kind of coming up with our stories and publicize them in a way that if we're comfortable sharing that, this needs to be heard by so many people. You know, we are kind of like the choir, the ones that are at this video Zoom right now. And there's so much that the people that are out there that are not seeing what we have talked about, what we heard today, that need to have a chance to read it and hear it. And we need to figure out a way of forwarding these things and just amplify this conversation in a way that really, you know, gets the impact much broader than what we have done in here. So thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for giving us hope, and really appreciate what you're all doing.
Gracias, Dr. Moreno. I appreciate your constant collaboration and support as well. We'll take Casey and Aaron, and then we'll close it out. Casey?
Thank you, Marla. This question is actually for you. What is the future of the program? I know when it was originally conceived, there was kind of a pilot and you got funding for like maybe 3 years. I can't remember. So tell us what's next, because clearly this group has demonstrated the value of this experience for those of us who have had the chance to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you so much, Casey, for that question. And you're absolutely right. When we first started, it was a piloted effort, and we had a 3-year investment from the Office of the Provost at the time, which turned into a permanent base budget within HSI initiatives, which certainly is ecstatic. So certainly grateful for that support. And I think it also gives us the opportunity now to think critically about what's next for this endeavor. It allows me to shift from having to maybe focus and have concern about that piece to really being continuing to be forward thinking and innovative around what we can do in this space. And so we actually, along with Dr. Judy Marquez-Guillama, she and I are partnering with others, and we'll be spearheading a research project around this effort to really better document, understand, and be able to disseminate quite widely the practices and the approaches and the frameworks utilized to shape this very unique and yet impactful experience. We're also, I think it's also perhaps the time for us to really think about considering offering it even beyond the University of Arizona. I've gotten that question quite frequently. I've also partnered with several people who are joining us today who have written it into grant proposals that would offer seats and experiences for colleagues across the nation to be a part of this experience. Also, too, I think with the launch of the HSI Consortium, where we're really creating a community of practice across 22 HSIs in the state of Arizona, it also perhaps is good timing with the launch of that to think about what HSI Fellows could look like even for the state of Arizona. So I'm certainly excited, to have conversations and to engage in thoughts about what that would mean. I think it certainly would benefit, even our own experiential learning for our own U of A faculty and staff, and likely be an amazing springboard to multi-institutional collaborations. So very excited, and certainly thank you for that question, and certainly be tapping on many of the HSI Fellows to also bring their thought leadership to the table to envision what that looks like. So thank you. Erin?
I just wanted to reiterate gratitude and thanks to everybody who presented today. These were 4 very unique projects. I'm a lecturer, by the way, with the Eller College of Management, and I'm really excited. This was so inspiring, and I can't wait to get started with the cohort this year with the HSI Fellows program. So thank you so much for sharing your work and the resources. I'm absolutely going to be sharing the link to the CRT resources with my team as soon as we get off this Zoom call. So thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm so excited. This was very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Erin. Erin's actually a part of our 4th cohort. And so on that note, there will be some follow-up email communication with project abstracts associated with each of the projects that you heard about today, so that you can read a bit more intimately about the questions that they sought to troubleshoot and problem solve around for our university. But I would like, before we conclude, to just introduce you actually to Cohort 4. They will be joining us very safely in my home in a couple of weeks for our inaugural kickoff dinner for this 4th cohort. And so you will see the broad swath of representation across several campus units. And so it's just a wonderful opportunity to welcome this new group of fellows to the program to really build off the history and the momentum and the strong foundation that the fellows before us have helped build. So thank you for your continued partnership. We certainly welcome Cohort 4 of our fellows. We thank cohorts 1 through 3. And we certainly thank you all for joining us today. We will be in touch via email, like I said, with more information, including project abstracts. So thank you all for joining us on a Friday morning. Have a wonderful weekend. And by all means, feel free to connect with us at any time to partner or learn more about University of Arizona's HSI initiatives. Thank you.